Live from Las Vegas, it's theCUBE, covering the AWS Accenture Executive Summit. Brought to you by Accenture.
Welcome back everyone to theCUBE's live coverage of the AWS Executive Summit here in Las Vegas at the Venetian. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight. We are joined by folks from Moneta Money Bank. We have Martin Berdych, who is the Senior Manager IT Infrastructure, and Martin Trcka, Cloud Technical Architect Manager at Accenture. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So we're talking today about Moneta Money Bank's journey to the cloud, but first I want to start with you, Martin. Talk a little bit, tell our viewers a little bit about Moneta Money Bank.
So Moneta Money Bank, it's a fourth largest bank in Czech Republic, which is not big, obviously the country is small, but the bank is far big. We're serving something around 1 million customers, and we're providing all the services you can imagine, so bank accounts, loans, mortgages, credit cards, whatever you find out. And there's one special thing I'd like to point out. We have a brilliant mobile application, which is consistently getting the awards every year for the best mobile banking app on the market. So this is Moneta.
So you're already a pioneer in technology, really on the vanguard.
Yeah.
And recently made the decision to move 24 of your existing apps to the public cloud.
Yeah.
What was the impetus for that decision?
I think there's a lot. I mean, there's a wider strategy which is around being digital, being agile, all those buzzwords you hear around everywhere.
No, actually go into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's
what's
automation, all the other stuff. I think one of the big one as well was the legacy infrastructure, because the bank's got a huge legacy stuff which is causing a lot of issues. If you want to go fast on the market, you want to be quick, you want to respond to your customers, this is slowing us down. So I think apart from all the other strategy, or at least in my area, the infrastructure part, definitely the big one was the legacy asset we are actually trying to remove by moving to cloud, that's the thing. Yeah.
So they needed a partner to help them move to the public cloud, in this case AWS, of course. And so when Accenture comes into this, first of all, is this a standard client, sort of someone who is a company that is already technologically minded and trying to do this? I mean, would you say that this is sort of the kind of person, the kind of organization that gravitates?
So Moneta, as a pioneer in terms of adopting public cloud on the Czech market, for them it was a huge step to adopt public cloud. So we were very happy that they asked us for help. The first thing that we did is we helped them design their IT strategy, what the steps should be in terms of adopting public cloud. Actually, we help them also to define that cloud adoption will be one of the pillars of their future growth, along with other initiatives. So we help them with the IT strategy, and then we basically went through that whole journey together with Moneta infrastructure teams, with Moneta security teams, and with our team who helped the client to migrate eventually those 24 workloads into the cloud.
So is it a co-creative process in the sense of, are you together figuring out the steps on the journey, or is it Accenture in the background? And
I think one of my goal was to make my team part of that as much as possible. So obviously Accenture help is appreciated, and they were needed because the knowledge of public cloud, not only in the company, I think even on the market itself, is very limited. The experience with that is very limited, so Accenture played a strong role in that. But what I made sure from the beginning, or I was trying to make sure from the beginning, is that the team will be part of that from really end to end. So whatever Accenture was helping, the team was kind of contributing, and they were able to actually do it together. So the knowledge, has been, increased in the wider team. So now we're definitely much more capable than we have been before, and when we started.
So how did you help? So sort of, as you said, figuring out the business challenges and then actually finding solutions.
So it all started with what we call preparation for the journey to cloud. This means that we help the client to assess their risk, because we are speaking about bank. There's a regulation which needs to be met, those requirements regulatory. So we help the client to assess the risk associated with going to cloud. We help them design their exit strategy when they need to actually, exit the cloud. And after we accomplish those, let's say, preparation tasks, we focused on what we call blueprints. This is basically designing concepts of how the target environment will look like in terms of the architecture, in terms of security, in terms of governance. So we helped jointly, with Martin's team, design those blueprints. And after that, it was basically ready to kick the journey to cloud actually itself. So.
You mentioned governance, you mentioned security, privacy. GDPR was recently enforced in Europe. Mm-hmm. Did you come up any challenges with?
No, there've been many. Obviously, the regulation itself, if it's GDPR, if it's the banking regulation, all the other elements have to be considered. And I think this is a constant, task. It's not over, because obviously, as we are pioneer on the market, we are learning and we are showing the other competitors actually whether this is actually possible and what needs to be done to make it possible. So obviously the regulator, Czech National Bank, had a lot of tasks or steps. They gave us a lot of next steps we have to fulfill so we can actually proceed, and this is an ongoing journey, and we have to kind of work on this, still work on it. It's not over. There have been a significant risk analysis done, obviously, so I think it was like more than 100 risk has been identified, around the cloud. Now this has been much reduced, and obviously there are still next steps we need to fulfill to get this done.
So you have fully migrated to the public cloud?
Those 20 applications.
The 20 applications,
yeah.
Yes, exactly. What have you seen so far, both from your clients and from your colleagues? Have you seen changes?
I think there have been a couple of things. One of the things is that the team, not only IT team, but internal people in the banks see that it's actually working, right? There have been some skepticism on the beginning. Obviously, people were looking for reasons why we shouldn't be doing it because of this and that. I think this is now a bit clearer, and people kind of getting the feeling that this is actually working. So this is one of the outcome of that thing. Obviously, the other was that we quickly find out, and Accenture helped on that, we need to optimize. So, we move it as it is, we lift and shift, and then we find out we're actually wasting resources, therefore we're wasting a lot of money. So we had to start working. So by moving it didn't stop. It's not over. We have to now work on that, and we need to find out how do we actually optimize the whole workload and what we can do to actually make it better. Apart from the fact we are looking at the other phases of the project, and we want to move more, we have to work on the older bit as well. So we need to make sure we get most from the cloud.
And what other learnings throughout this process did you come up with, sort of best practices that have emerged? As you said, you are showing your competitors that it is possible. The other top 3 banks in the Czech Republic, are sort of learning from Moneta Money Bank's experience. What would you say are the best practices?
So it really depends, on from which perspective you look on those lessons learned. So from the regulation perspective, the answer is yes, it's possible to adopt public cloud even with in highly regulated FS market. However, you need to meet many requirements. From the technology perspective, I believe that Moneta was really surprised how easy it was to adopt the technology itself. The migration happened basically in just 4.5 months. So this is something you normally are not able to accomplish in traditional legacy data center environment. So this is from the technology perspective. As you said, journey to cloud is how you migrate to cloud, but then journey in cloud begins. So another lesson learned is actually that once you are in the cloud, you need to change your operating model. You need to start optimizing not only your spend, but also let's say performance and resiliency. So basically, the job is not done when you migrate to cloud. It just begins, right? So
exactly.
So you're at the beginning of this journey. Now that you're there, what is the future work? What does the future look like?
Yeah, obviously we have a big plans. I think our aim is to migrate 50% of the workload, until end of 2019. It's a challenging task because, we obviously created the baseline because we have the environment, we have some applications. So now we just build on top of that and we start to work on it. but it's a challenging task, and this is what we're looking at in the future.
And do clients feel it? I mean, would a banking customer sense any difference? And this is the thing, you win awards for your mobile app. So
absolutely. I think the plans for the 2019 will be really, that's going to be the shift for the clients. We have plans to move their really like a strong production workloads, which are affecting the clients, on the end of the day. And I think that's going to be the visible element for them when we do that.
And finally, what's your word of advice for other banks that are pondering this move to the public cloud? What would you say? Is it sort of the strategic advice?
So when we are speaking to clients about public cloud adoption, they usually think about public cloud adoption in terms of technology, right? That you are basically replacing data center technologies, on-premise technologies with some other technology in the cloud. This is not the case. That part of the whole journey is just a small part. It's about changing how the organization work. It changes the operating model. It touches almost every function in the organization. The business, HR, finance, security, risk teams. All those teams and functions are affected by cloud adoption. So my recommendation would be think of cloud adoption from that perspective. It's not just a technology change. You're not just changing a platform for another platform.
I would have one recommendation, and that is don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
I like it. That's a good word.
Yeah.
Good word of advice to end on. Martin, thank you so much for coming on theCUBE. It was a really great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Knight. That wraps up day one of theCUBE's live coverage of the AWS Executive Summit. We will be back here tomorrow with more. Signing off, thank you so much for joining us.